What's up, everybody, and welcome into another exciting episode of That Dynasty Show. Today, we are currently 9 days away from the NFL season. By the time this is posted to YouTube, it's only going to be 8 days. So you know what? Tyler and I figured we got to make some hot takes. There's a couple kind of spread in between our videos here and there between the both of us, but we need a video dedicated specifically to our hot takes for the 2022 NFL season. But before we jump into the video, got to introduce Tyler as always. So Tyler, how you doing, buddy?
I'm always good when you give me such a kind introduction with a nice hello. I'm in a good mood today. We got our first freshman game tomorrow, so I'm just in the mood to talk some football. It's a good day.
Nice, dude. Well, good luck in the game. Hopefully you guys blow them out, as they say, right? Little 48-0 action, I'm thinking.
A goose egg would be real nice. I mean, I'm the defensive guy. I do offensive line as well. But yeah, I would love to see a goose egg on the board.
Yeah, let's pitch a shutout tomorrow. Well, hey, speaking of pitching a shutout, something tells me that some of the guys we're going to be talking about on today's video, we think maybe they'll be shut out in a handful of games, or maybe they'll just absolutely dominate opposing teams. So I've got 6 here that I want to highlight today. I think you had 5. So you know what? I'll start off first since we got a bit of an odd number here today. And we'll start off with, if you've been watching the channel, this one should be pretty obvious. It's about a quarterback, a very specific quarterback from the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is my hot take for Derek Carr. Derek Carr is going to finish as a top 5 quarterback in the 2022 NFL season for fantasy football. And honestly, I really don't think it's that outlandish of a hot take. I think a lot of people are going to take this as a super spicy take, especially considering that Derek Carr is being drafted somewhere between like QB 12 and QB 16 in both redraft and dynasty right now, which is another story. But Derek Carr has Devontae Adams. Derek Carr has Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, a decent line in front of him. He's in one of the toughest divisions in all of football. So, he's going to have to air it out at least 6 games a year, right? There's just a lot of things that are kind of lining up for Derek Carr to go out there and have an absolute massive year. I think he's going to be a dark horse MVP candidate by midway through the season. I think he is one of maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks that have any legitimate chance of reaching 5,000 passing yards this year. And I think he could pretty easily set a career best in terms of touchdowns. This is the best supporting cast he's ever had. I think his most he's ever scored and most touchdowns he's ever thrown in a single season was like 32 or 33. And with Adams and Waller and even Renfrow out there, I don't see him having under 30 at minimum, right? So I think this is going to be a massive year for Derek Carr. He's at such a good discount in both redraft and dynasty right now. And yeah, that's going to be my first hot take here, is that Derek Carr can and will finish as a top 5 quarterback for fantasy in 2022.
So I don't think it's all that outlandish. My question to you would be, who would you take out of the top 5? We have Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert. It's going to be hard to consider them to be out of the question there, right? Then we still have guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers for 2022. And then, a healthy Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. Who are you? Where's the line for you? I guess the top 5 based on Fantasy Pros ends at Kyler Murray. So Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Jackson, Murray, and then we can consider the 6th, right? So, you're going to have to take him over 2 of the 3 out of Lamar, Kyler, and Burrow. I'm just wondering, who is it?
Well, for starters, Josh Allen is definitely a top 5 quarterback this year, top 3 at the very worst. So he's obviously still in that list. Pat Mahomes, even without Tyreek Hill, I think his floor is a top 5 quarterback, right? And I would say Justin Herbert is arguably in the same conversation as Pat Mahomes. So I think those 3 guys are pretty safe. Derek Carr, see, with Lamar Jackson, it's a toss-up, right? We could see a bit of a holdout from him. He said that he would not take the field week 1 if he doesn't have a new contract. We're 8 days away, and there's no new contract. Apparently, both sides are still kind of far apart. So, we got to keep in mind that. But I'm not going to use that to my advantage, right? Lamar Jackson struggled a lot last year. He did not do what we're used to seeing him do from a fantasy perspective. So I think he is going to bounce back, and I would put Lamar Jackson in my top 5 for this year, but there's a possibility for him to finish outside of it. Kyler Murray is far from consistent. He doesn't have DeAndre Hopkins for the first half of the season, essentially. Marquise Brown, I know they were teammates in college, but like there's still a lot of chemistry that needs to be built up as pros. That outside of Marquise Brown, he's got Zach Ertz, and really that's it. And I think Kyler Murray, as good as he is on his legs, I would rather have Lamar Jackson than him. I would rather have even Jalen Hurts than him, right, from a rushing perspective. So I think Kyler Murray's upside is kind of capped based on the team around him and the inconsistencies we've seen. So I would say that out of those 5 guys, I think Derek Carr, if he's going to beat anyone, it's most likely that he'll take down Kyler Murray. I think he just straight up outscores Joe Burrow. That might be a hot take for many, but it's really not. So Joe Burrow had 2 games last year in the fantasy playoffs, right? So most important time of the year, where he had like 35 and 38 points. But out of the, I think, 27 or 28 career games that he's played, he only has 4 games where he's had over 25 fantasy points in a single game. It's not exactly what you want out of your, top 4, top 5 quarterback. So I definitely think Derek Carr can beat Kyler Murray. Definitely think he beats Joe Burrow. And then as much as I love Jalen Hurts, he's a gamble. He's a coin flip as to whether or not he can be in the top 5 this year. So I think Derek Carr is top 5, and at the very worst, he's going to be number 6.
Wait, all right. What is the floor for you for Derek Carr? I know you just said very worst number 6, but what is the floor?
For the sake of my hot take, I'll say I can change it to top 6 and be pretty comfortable with it. I think he will be top 5. His floor is number 9 or 10. He will not finish worse than the QB 10 this year, and you can draft him somewhere between like 12 and 16 overall as quarterback. So I think no matter what, Derek Carr is a screaming value. And I do think he's the only quarterback being taken outside of the stereotypical top 12 that has top 5 upside.
And I agree with a lot of that, right? Because, I think Devontae Adams, I think it's pretty safe to say that he adds like 5 or 6 touchdowns to this offense, and maybe takes away from Josh Jacobs a little bit. So yeah, I'm with you on that. And yeah, not really going to give you too strong of an argument against it, right? Because, we've seen him be consistently a solid low end QB1 for a couple of years in fantasy football. So, seeing him shoot up to a top 5 guy when you get a number 1 receiver like Devontae Adams is well within the range of outcomes, especially when you have supporting casts like with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller there too. So, I think you're right. Floor is probably 10.
Yeah, so I'm a big Derek Carr guy this year. I've been hammering home on him all off season. I'll be doing that in my redraft drafts that are coming up over the next 7 or 8 days. So look out for Derek Carr to have a big year. But Tyler, I know you got a handful of hot takes you want to cover too. So go ahead and jump into your first one there.
Yeah, so my first one is going to be a screaming hot one. JuJu is going to outscore Tyreek this year. JuJu last year was a wide receiver 17. A lot of people forget that. He had only 8.5 yards per catch on 128 targets. I think 128 targets is a reasonable range for him. I think that's probably the high end of what he's going to see this year in Kansas City. But he only had 8.5 yards per catch versus 15.8, 12.8, and 13.1 to start his career, right? So, even if he just improve, if he gets back to that range of his yards per catch and he sees a similar amount of targets that he saw last year in that offense, I think this is the place to do it. I've been screaming for JuJu all season. Tyreek finished as a wide receiver 6 last year on 160 targets. He's not going to see 160 targets this year, not with Jalen Waddle there.
Wait, what season are you looking at for JuJu where he was number 17?
Was it last year?
No, last year he only played 5 games.
Oh, no, sorry, the year before.
Okay.
Right, all right, whatever. My bad.
Had to clear it up.
Catch me on the technicality. Thank you. But yeah, even then it was on 8.5 yards per catch. So I think if he gets back to that, yardage per catch, I think it's very well within the range of outcomes that he can finish in the top 12 and get back to. I think he's just going to explode this year. I really do. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. Tyreek's just going to slow down for Jalen Waddle, and I've been talking about it all off season, but JuJu over Tyreek.
See, I disagree wholeheartedly. I don't see a world where Tyreek finishes outside of the top 20. And I mean, I do see a world where JuJu finishes inside the top 20, but there are a hell of a lot more worlds where he finishes outside of the top 20. So using that as a basis, I mean, there's not many scenarios where JuJu goes out and outscores him. And my reasoning with that is just one, he's still getting a chemistry down with Pat Mahomes. Granted, he is, by the standards of what's going on with the Chiefs. I mean, he's a veteran receiver, right? First year receiver with the Chiefs, but he is a veteran receiver. But Pat Mahomes has him, Travis Kelce, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman, MVS. They did just cut Josh Gordon today, so we can finally cut those discussions out, right? I mean, it's not outlandish to think JuJu is going to have a successful year because I think he will step in and be the wide receiver one for Pat Mahomes. I don't see him outscoring Tyreek. I honestly, like I said, Tyreek's floor is he won't finish outside of the top 20. I have a hard time believing Tyreek would even finish outside of the top 15. And I really don't think JuJu's going to beat out, all but 14 receivers this year. So I have a hard time buying into this one. Saying JuJu's going to be good and saying he's going to outscore Tyreek are two completely different things.
I think this one's just as much about my love for JuJu as it's going to be Tyreek's regression this year. I mean, he went from 17 yards a catch to 14 to 14 to 11 last year. I mean, that's a huge drop-off. He was with Pat Mahomes. Tua Tagovailoa was at the bottom of the points produced list when we looked at it. Tua put up 48 points per game last year for his fantasy wide receivers versus Pat Mahomes 67. There's 20 less points to go around that offense, a much bigger competition with Jalen Waddle there, and they have a decent tight end in Mike Gesicki who saw 100-plus targets last year. So, I mean, Tyreek's regression plus JuJu is just going to explode in that offense. He is the number one guy, hands down. He's going to be the beneficiary from Pat Mahomes. Him and Travis Kelce, you can't just go to Travis Kelce every play. I mean, Travis Kelce is not going to receive for the 4,000 yards that Pat Mahomes is going to throw for this season, So, I mean, JuJu is going to see 1,000-plus yards this year, and he's going to hands down blow up fantasy.
Well, I'm rooting for you, but I also don't see. I mean, I told you this a few videos ago. I don't see JuJu Smith-Schuster really topping much more than 900 yards for the foreseeable future, arguably ever again, because I don't think he's as good of a receiver as a lot of people think he is. But we'll see what happens, right? This is I haven't heard your other hot takes, obviously, but something tells me this one, I sure hope this is the one I disagree with the most. If not, this is going to be a long video.
It's all right. We got time.
Well, you know what? I got a hot take for you. And I kind of feel bad bringing this one up because I feel like I scream this in every single video, but it has to be said. And I don't think there's going to be too much argument from you, if at all. It's about Josh Jacobs being a top 10 running back in 2022. He's going in like the 5th or 6th round of both redraft and dynasty leagues right now, which is just stupid. From a dynasty perspective, I mean, he's 24 years old. He just turned 24 in February, so this is his age 24 season. Running backs really don't see a decline until like age 26 or 27, so we had another few years out of him. But specifically for 2022, I don't understand why anyone could really provide an argument that he wouldn't finish as an RB1. I have him finishing as a top 10, but I don't think anyone could argue that he can't finish in the top 12, right? They just released Kenyon Drake. The offense around him got better. The offensive line got better. With the offense getting better, we should see better quarterback play from Derek Carr, which should open the field up for Josh Jacobs. We saw him be targeted more last year than he has in the first 2 years of his career. I know that the coaching staff is all brand new, and they're coming from New England. We've seen New England never really take on a full-on workhorse role for their running backs, but I think that's a lazy argument, right? Like New England hasn't had a guy of Josh Jacobs's caliber over the last several years. Even last year when they were quote unquote splitting time out there, Damian Harris had 15 rushing touchdowns, right? Like, why can't Josh Jacobs put up 15 rushing touchdowns? Why can't he repeat in getting 60-plus targets? His only competition for touches is Zamir White, who is a dog water rookie, in my opinion. I have no faith in Zamir White at all. And then it's Amir Abdullah, who, yeah, he's a pass catching back, but he's not even a poor man's Naheem Hines, right? Like he just steps in here and there from team to team and does whatever occasionally. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have an absolute massive year. I've mentioned this in other videos. Vegas probably is not going to retain him. They declined his 5th-year option, so very unlikely that they offer him a contract after this year. They have no reason not to run him into the ground and use him for every single touch that he possibly can because he's not a part of their future plans. So give him 300 carries, give him 60 to 70 targets. Why not? It's not their problem this time next year. Use your best runner in a year where Vegas can legitimately compete. So I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a top 10 running back in 2022.
Yeah, he's getting drafted at 24 right now based on Fantasy Pros and redraft this year.
RB 24?
Yeah. So
that's stupid. Like that is a screaming value.
Dude, I mean he finished at what? It was 8 and 11 the past 2 years, right?
Yeah, and even as a rookie, like when Vegas was not who Vegas is now, right? I think he played like 12 or 13 games and was still a top 20 or top 21 PPR running back. So it's like, where are we getting RB24 from? This is the most opportunity that he's probably ever going to see in his career. Like this is his career year waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, this offense is going to improve. I mean, there's going to be just as much like work as that Devontae Adams is going to take away from Josh Jacobs. He's going to create that much more touchdown opportunity for him too, you know? So, I mean, Josh Jacobs has been their goal line guy, and I agree. I mean, I think Devontae Adams is probably going to take some of that away, but he's going to create a lot of it as well. So, I mean, screaming value at 24. If you're getting him at RB24, it's so ridiculous. AJ Dillon going over him is crazy. J.K. Dobbins going over him is crazy. David Montgomery, I think, is even crazy. Cam Akers is pretty wild. I don't even know if in redraft, like Zeke, I mean, I guess Zeke probably should go over him. But yeah, I mean, Antonio Gibson going right behind him. Yeah, I'm not about these rankings. Josh Jacobs should be way higher.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are the only two people that are actively looking into this. Like I'll go on Twitter and I'll post something about Josh Jacobs. I'll have people in my mentions like, "Oh no, you're stupid, dude." Like, what do you mean I'm stupid? Look at the results from the last couple of years. Look at the opportunity he has ahead of him. Like I get heated whenever because like Josh Jacobs, he's not sexy, right? Like he's not going to go out there and have a 20-point game for you. You might get one, maybe two of those a season, but like he's also not going to score under 11 or 12 for you in most weeks. Like he is just that consistent RB2. And I know finishing in the top 10 does make you an RB1. So on the overall season, yes, he will be an RB1, but he's an every week super safe RB2. Like he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey for you. He's not going to be Jonathan Taylor. He's not going to be Alvin Kamara, right? But he's going to go out there and he's not going to lose you any weeks. And that's kind of what you want in an RB2, you know? And Tyler, I know you are famously on this channel, always punting the RB2 position, right? Because you focus on your RB1, you get your wide receivers, you get your positional advantage in a tight end. If you can get Josh Jacobs super late as your RB2, you can get a guy that's consistently doing something for you every week. No brainer. No brainer.
Yeah, and honestly, most of the time I'm punting it because I get guys like Josh Jacobs, you know, because I get Josh Jacobs specifically in the later rounds. I mean, and he is a guy who once in a while he will put up a 20-point week for you, you know, and I mean, you look back to 2020, I mean, he had a 35-point week, you know, 22, 29, another, I think a 24 I saw somewhere. Yes, I mean, he's definitely capable of doing it, and the opportunity is at its peak right now. He's only 24 years old. I know it feels like he's been around for a while because he has. I mean, that was the attraction when you drafted him at 101 in 2019 when he came in, right? Or wherever you drafted him. I think he was top 3. A lot of people took him 101. But yeah, I mean, yeah, best situation he's ever been in, and there's no reason for where he's being drafted right now.
Yeah, I'm pumped to see what he can do in 2022. I think he's going to make a lot of people look really stupid, and I sincerely hope it's not you and I that he makes look stupid. But I'll let you go ahead and do your next one here.
So my next one, this one's going to shock a lot of people, but I mean, Kareem Hunt, I think, is going to finish top 12. He was on pace last year for a top 10 season before he missed 8 games. And then in 2019, also before injury. And he also did it in 2020 with the Browns, which, I mean, a lot of people don't really give him credit for. I know Nick Chubb going down for a couple of games in that year. probably did contribute to that. But I mean, I think that with Jacoby Brissett, this one, it could be just a dink and dunk offense, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I think there's going to be plenty of room for both of them. Amari Cooper is not what he was a couple of years ago. I can tell you that myself. He is, and he's a guy who's very inconsistent and will be hurt for. Sorry, excuse me. He'll be hurt for 8 games or 6 games, throughout a season, with no problem and see nothing wrong with it. He'll come out of games in clutch times and in passing situations. They're gonna lean on this running back room in Cleveland for a long time this season. And I think even when Deshaun Watson comes back, when it comes fantasy playoff time, Kareem Hunt's going to be a huge beneficiary of that as well. So, yeah, I'm all in on Kareem Hunt this year. He's done it before with the Browns. He was on pace to do it twice before injury. And if he stays healthy this year, I think it's well within the range of outcomes that this guy does finish top 12.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't hate it because, I mean, Deshaun Watson's going to be out for half the season. Jacoby Brissett is awful. This offense is going to be struggling to get things moving, and they're going to be playing a lot of catch-up. And that's going to take Nick Chubb off the field and put Kareem Hunt on the field. And I like that you pointed it out. I mean, in 2020, he played a full 16 games, split right down the middle with Nick Chubb. He was the RB10 in a split backfield. He had almost 200 carries, which I don't think he'll repeat with 200 carries this year, but he had 304 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns in the air, 11 total touchdowns, and that was off of 51 targets, which I think he'll have more. If he's healthy, he's a fair candidate to have at least 60 to 65 targets this year. So I think a lot of things could even out for him. For what it's worth, when he went down last year, he was doing really, really well. He was, in a points per game basis, he was the RB 20 last year through 8 games, right? And that's still pretty damn good. So I think calling him top 12 is definitely a hot take, but I don't think it's a reckless hot take. I think that it could happen. I think that I would be very surprised if he doesn't finish at least as an RB2. Finishing in the top 12 would surprise me, but it wouldn't blow my socks off by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I mean, how many points did he finish with last year? Like 110?
110 through 8 games. So he averaged 13.75 a game through 8 games, which, I mean, with how late you're getting him in drafts, that's pretty damn good.
I mean, if he put up 220 to 230 points per that last year, that would have been good for the RB 4 or 5. That's kind of crazy. He would have finished above Najee Harris.
Yeah, and speaking to that, if he played 16 games last year, right? So he had 110 through 8 games. If he kept up with that same pace, that'd be 220 through 16 games. That would have been the RB 13, 5 or 6 points ahead of Nick Chubb, ironically enough, and 6 points behind who other than Josh Jacobs.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just totally misspoke when I said that. I was looking at standard. Yeah, he would have finished at RB12. I just said he would have finished at RB4 last year. I was looking at the wrong stats.
Oh no, it's totally fine. But yeah, either way, I mean, he was balling out last year. He was balling out the year before that. Even when he came to Cleveland, halfway through the season back in 2019, he had 101, still splitting carries with Nick Chubb, right? 101 through 8 games. So he has not given us anything in Cleveland to make us believe anything other than he can at least put up, 13.5 points per game, which is pretty damn cool.
Dude, I was looking at it, I was like, wow, 226 is really low for Najee Harris. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, those standard recaps, it kind of makes me upset that standard is still called standard and we need a special name for PPR. Like, PPR should be standard, and then these standard leagues should just be like dinosaur leagues or something, because nobody fucking plays them anymore, right? Or at least you shouldn't. At least play half PPR. Be a man. Come on.
Yeah, they're no fun, right?
I hate them. I understand why some people get like ticked off, because in PPR, 1 catch for 0 yards is more than like a hard fought 10-yard run by a running back, right? But also it's like, shut up and draft the running back that's going to catch the ball. Stop complaining. But speaking of running backs that are going to catch the ball, we'll move from Kareem Hunt over to my next running back hot take, and you're going to hate this one. I know you're going to hate this one because you're a big Breece Hall fan, but I'm going to say two things about Breece Hall. One, Breece Hall finishes outside of the top 20 running backs in 2022, and he also gets outscored by none other than Houston Texans rookie running back Dameon Pierce. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because they officially released Marlon Mack today, and I'm very excited about Dameon Pierce actually having a starting job because he's looked so good and he's so much fun to watch. This take is less about Dameon Pierce, though, and more about Breece Hall. I just kind of had to throw that in there. But, yeah, Breece Hall, if you said this to someone that's exclusively playing redraft, I don't think they would find it that shocking because in redraft leagues, Breece Hall is going, like RB19 overall, I think. So saying he's going to finish outside of the top 20, it's really not that much of a hot take. However, from a dynasty perspective, Breece Hall is the unanimous 101 everywhere. If you look back over the last several years, every single 101 for every single running back 101 over the last 5 or 6 years has all had, at the very least, a top 20 finish, right? Last year, Najee was top 3, top 5. The year before that, both Clyde Edwards-Helaire and JT were both in the top 20 or 22. What was the year before that? Josh Jacobs was the year before that. He finished as a top 20 guy. Then you had Barkley. Then you had Zeke. I think the streak gets broken this year with those 101s. I think Breece Hall is not going to do it. And there's a few things. Do I think he's talented? I do. I don't think he's supremely talented. I would put him probably on the same level as I would with Josh Jacobs. But the difference is Josh Jacobs has a very big opportunity in front of him, and Breece Hall is on a shitty offense with a shitty quarterback, and he's splitting time with a running back that can also catch the ball pretty damn well. I think Breece Hall is definitely a better running back than Michael Carter, but as pass catchers, I think they're kind of one and the same, and I think Michael Carter is going to be used to spell Breece Hall a lot. Obviously early in the season, but I think throughout the entire season. And then you just factor in the fact that the Jets are going to be playing a lot of catch-up. I think their defense is definitely improving, but Zach Wilson still has a lot to prove, and I don't necessarily think that he's going to keep them in games. And it's going to be a lot of quick offense, and it's going to be not so friendly for Breece Hall and Michael Carter from a fantasy perspective. So I want to see Breece Hall strive. I don't know what word I'm looking for. I want to see him do well, is what I'm saying.
Thrive is the word.
Thrive. That's what it is. I want to see him thrive, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. And I've kind of said this in other videos too, but I think at some point this season, you're going to be able to buy low on Breece Hall. I really do, because I think that by midway through the 2023 season, I think Breece Hall will be performing as you'd expect from a top 3 rookie pick. But I think there's going to be a good buy low window at some point in his rookie year, because I just don't think he's going to start off so well.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to get all that much pushback from me, because I agree. I mean, he's going to be splitting time early on in the season. I just don't think it's going to last very long. I mean, the Jets, as far as run blocking goes, PFF has them ranked right in the middle of the pack with like the Chargers, Rams, and Colts, 13th in the league. I think Breece Hall is just the Jets' best option to win. And I know Zach Wilson, I think he's not really expected to be back until when is it? It's like a couple weeks into the season, right? Isn't it? When do they play the Ravens? I don't know.
The Jets, they play week 1.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Zach Wilson's supposed to be back. I have no idea. But, I mean, there's a chance he won't be back. I don't really keep up with Zach Wilson too much. I can give a damn about that guy. But Breece Hall is going to be the workhorse of this offense sooner rather than later. The Jets have a decent enough offensive line. I think he's just going to be their best path to victory week in and week out, and they're going to lean on him. And they traded up in the draft to go get this guy at damn near the first round, in the end of the first round. I mean, it was 4 picks later. So they made sure they went to go get this guy. He's going to be their feature back much sooner than I think you're anticipating. But yeah, there might be a buy low period, but I think dynasty owners that spent the one-on-one on him are gonna weather the storm on this guy. He graded out just below guys like Zeke and Jonathan Taylor and a lot of people's rookie models for their running backs, and in terms of his raw athleticism. He's one of the best to come out in recent years. So I think he's just going to continue on the trend with the guys who have gone 101. I think going outside the top 20 is a little wild.
Yeah, we'll see. I won't be surprised if I'm wrong on this one, but I do also feel kind of strongly about it. I don't see him having a very successful rookie year, and I think you and most people discount Michael Carter way too much. I think Michael Carter is going to be a big part of game plans for the entire year, not just the first several weeks. But I know you got some more, so I'll let you get into your next one.
So my next one is Allen Robinson. I think a lot of people are really discounting the improvement that he's going to get at quarterback. I think he's going to finish in the top 12 this year. We've seen him be a guy who is a wide receiver one in much worse situations than he's in right now. Give me Allen Robinson in the number 2 coverage. I think Matt Stafford is more than capable of producing 2 wide receiver ones in that offense. We look at all of at a handful. Let's see. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the top 12 guys that produced for their receivers last year in terms of quarterback play had 2 elite options that were top 12 at their position. So I think that Matt Stafford is definitely going to be one of them. Robert Woods is a guy who was on pace for wide receiver 9 last year before he got hurt. I think I got that from you. I think you said that the other day. I'm just pulling it out of my memory bank.
Yeah, he was firmly in the top 10 when he went down with injury.
Yeah, I think Allen Robinson is a huge improvement from Robert Woods, and I think that there's plenty of room for both Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp in that offense. Allen Robinson is going from literally the worst quarterback in the league in terms of quarterback production in Justin Fields. He put up 38.8 points per game for his receivers to Matt Stafford, who was number 6 with 67 flat. It's damn near double. I'll take it. Give me Allen Robinson all day at where you're drafting him. No shot. Top 12. I think the absolute floor here is like 15 to 16.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm a lot more comfortable calling him a top 16 guy than I am a top 12 guy. I think it is going to be hard for him to break out into that top 12, being in a wide receiver 2 role. But then again, it's not outlandish to say, right? Because I would say it about T. Higgins, with no problem, right? And I wouldn't say that Allen Robinson is not as talented as T. Higgins. We've seen Allen Robinson be talented throughout his career, right? We've just seen him have really shitty quarterback play. Like you said, Matt Stafford is the best quarterback that he's ever played with. And this is also the first time where Allen Robinson doesn't have to be a team's wide receiver 1. He can go out there and draw the 2 coverage. He's not going to be the top priority for defenses because a guy named Cooper Kupp exists. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. Again, I don't know if I would go as far to call him a top 12 guy in 2022, but I would be very surprised to see him finish outside of the top 18. Like you saying he finishes as a top 12 guy surprises me less than if someone said he wouldn't finish as a top 25 guy. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think anybody who says he's not finishing the top 25 is just out of their minds.
Just banking on injury at that point, really.
Literally. And I do that, I guess, I'm doing that with Derrick Henry, but he's getting drafted right now in fantasy drafts as the wide receiver 23. I'm taking him over guys like Cortland Sutton, like DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, maybe even DK Metcalf, probably not DK Metcalf, but Brandon Cooks is going above him. I think he should be well above the range that he's going. I'm taking him all day.
Yeah, I like it. And at wide receiver 23, you're kind of drafting him at his floor, right? Like, obviously, there's a risk associated because last year we saw him really do nothing, but he was kind of playing hurt. Justin Fields was awful his rookie year. Matt Nagy and that entire offense was just terrible. Like, I'm going to throw last year out for Allen Robinson. I'm not going to hold it against him. And if we're picking up right where we left off with him in 2020, he should have no problem being, at least a top 18 offense. So saying top 12, I don't think it's outlandish. So I do like that take from you.
If you have Allen Robinson as a wide receiver 2 right now, you almost really don't have to worry about your wide receiver one being dominant. You can settle for a guy like, an AJ Brown or a T Higgins as your wide receiver one, even, if you're really going strong running backs. And then if you end up with Allen Robinson, you're going to make up that production in no time, and your team's going to be in really good shape. So I'm getting Allen Robinson in every spot I can get him.
Well, so you're taking Allen Robinson. There's a receiver that I'm not taking anywhere, especially at cost. Like if he falls, maybe a full round past his ADP, I would start exploring options on him. But this is probably my hottest take on the entire list. Deebo Samuel will not finish as a wide receiver one in 2022. And I feel pretty strongly about that. So the offense is changing with Trey Lance. There's going to be a lot more. I mean, San Francisco has kind of been a run-first offense in the past, right? In recent memory, they've always been run-first. And now it's going to be even more run first. Trey Lance can run the ball. Elijah Mitchell can run the ball. Jeff Wilson, Tyrion Payne, whatever the hell his name is, he's their new guy. Trey Sermon's also there. Like they have 4 semi-legitimate running backs kind of doing a tandem there. And then you got Trey Lance running it, right? So you got these guys that are going to run the ball. Then you got to factor in Brandon Aiyuk was a top 15, top 16 option over the last half of last season. So you got to figure he'll be more involved this year. Plus, he's been their big training camp winner, right? Like Brandon Aiyuk has been absolutely destroying in training camp. So you got to figure Ayuk's going to start taking targets away. We can assume that Kittle's going to come back and be healthy. God, that would be amazing if we could see a healthy Kittle season for once, right? But I think that Deebo sees less targets, and I think that he's going to see a lot less carries because, I mean, even though they did extend Deebo, we have to assume that in those contract negotiations, Deebo was like, I'm going to stay here, but you need to stop using me as a running back so often, right? Like that's one of the big dynamic parts of his game. But he has publicly voiced that he does not want to do that because he's smart. He knows that ruins the longevity that he's going to have in the league. There's a reason why running backs last significantly less time in the NFL than wide receivers do. And that's because they take these big hits. They take those low hits, in the middle of the pile and everything like that. They have multiple guys tackling them at once. Deebo doesn't want to deal with that. So I think that between less carries and less targets, I think he's still going to be efficient. I think he's still going to be a fun receiver to have. And I think that he's going to provide you at least a handful of really big weeks. But I don't think he's going to do it on a consistent basis. I don't think he's going to score as many touchdowns as he did last year. And I don't think he's worth the cost. And I'm not going to be surprised if he's not a top 12 wide receiver in 2022.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the league winner that he was last year. I think around like 15 is probably his floor, low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 is probably where I'm considering him. Especially he's already dealing with apparently injury concerns too. Apparently he's got a contusion in his knee as well. I'm just seeing here. But yeah, I mean, he finished as the wide receiver 3 last year. Like you said, it had a lot to do with his rushing upside. I think that he's going to see a lot of touchdowns though. Still, I think he's going to get just as many goal line opportunities. So I think that's going to keep his floor pretty high. But I'm agreeing with you. I'm not as high on Deebo as a lot of people are. Yeah, I'm not really going to push back too much against this. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk is going to take a chunk out of that. Even though I wasn't really on the train, it's starting to see that I've been proven wrong. Even though I still don't really feel safe drafting Brandon Aiyuk, just because I think it's going to be such a spread offense. I don't think there's going to be one league winner in that offense other than, I mean, this is kind of a perfect segue, other than Trey Lance, But yeah, I'm with you. I think this one's kind of safe to say.
Well, before we move on, let me ask you this. Are you more comfortable drafting Deebo at wide receiver 6 or Brandon Aiyuk at wide receiver 35?
Oh, Brandon Aiyuk at wide receiver 35.
See, and that's what I'm saying too. Like I think Aiyuk is going to take a big leap this year, and it's going to directly affect Deebo. And Deebo, like I said, doesn't want to rush the ball as much. So I just don't see him having the same upside. I don't think anyone in their right mind should be taking him as the wide receiver 6. If he's there, maybe as like the wide receiver 9 or 10, okay, then yeah, maybe I'll take that coin toss there, right? Because I don't think he's going to finish outside of the top 15. I just don't think he's going to be, that top 10 league winner that he was last year. So we'll see what happens with him. But I know you mentioned Trey Lance. So is it safe to assume that you're going to use that segue from Deebo to Trey Lance in a bold take here?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit. I think there's a lot of people who actually are kind of on this train, but maybe not right away. I mean, Trey Lance is being drafted as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver in a lot of drafts this year. But I think he's going to finish top 10 this year, right off the bat. First year as a starter, full-time guy. In the 3 games that we saw him play last year that he got a 50% or more snap share, he scored 20, 20, and 15. Yeah, he's gonna emerge as a QB1, literally regardless of how successful his NFL team is, just because of the rushing upside. We saw a game that he had like 10 plus carries or something last year. I don't have the game log in front of me, but yeah, I mean, regardless of how the team does, he's gonna kill it for fantasy this year, and he's gonna be a comfortable QB1 this year. I think top 10 is like pretty much this guy's floor.
Yeah, and that game that you're speaking of, he his passing stats were kind of ugly, 50%, 192, no touchdowns and an interception, but it's 16 carries for 89 yards, which is definitely exciting to see from a fantasy perspective, right? And I think he'll be an improved passer this year for sure. So I like this take. I do. I think that he very easily could be this year's version of Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, he's got the same rushing upside. I would say Jalen Hurts is a bit more of a dynamic runner, but Trey Lance can do it probably just as well as Jalen Hurts. Like, let's be real here. One of the big reasons why Trey Lance was so highly sought after in last year's draft is because of his dual threat ability, and also the fact that he went an entire 14 or 15 game season in college without throwing a single interception, which is pretty damn impressive. So we know he's got the accuracy. We know that he's got the legs, and we know that he's got a hell of a supporting cast. Just because I don't like Deebo as a wide receiver 1 doesn't mean I don't love him for Trey Lance, right? Between Deebo, Aiyuk, Kittle, a handful of decent running backs he can dump it off to. Plus, I really like their rookie, Danny Gray, who they took on day 2. I think it was the 3rd round. I think he's going to show spurts this year. So I think, and they've got a pretty damn decent offensive line as well. So I think San Francisco has surrounded Trey Lance with good tools. I think they let him sit on the bench for an entire year for a reason, because, he wasn't ready last year, and this year he's going to actually have the ability to go out there and do what he needs to do as a starter. And I would not be the least bit surprised to see him finish as a top 10 guy this year at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be a little bit raw last year, right? He had like almost no experience as a college quarterback. He was pretty much drafted on his upside, right? But I mean, this guy's literally a running back playing quarterback. I mean, he's a miniature Cam Newton almost. I think he's a knockoff version of what Cam was, right? And he's in a really good spot with a lot of talented players around him. And I mean, Kyle Shanahan's a genius. I mean, this guy literally rushed for 5.8 yards a carry in that one game, 5.5 in that other. Like, it's insane. The guy's literally a running back playing the quarterback position that gets to throw the ball. So yeah, I think he's gonna just do wonders for you, like week in and week out.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call him a mini Cam Newton, right? Like, I don't think people realize, but Trey Lance, he's 6'4", 225. Like, he's not a tiny quarterback.
Yeah,
so he'll be able to throw his weight around out there.
Yeah, I think I more so meant like a knockoff version of him. I don't think Trey Lance is ever going to be the MVP of the league like Cam Newton was, but I think that I just don't think he has the arm talent that Cam Newton used to have. But yeah, I think he's going to be a great fantasy quarterback for a while, as long as he's in the league.
Definitely. Well, since I talked about a 49er and you talked about a 49er, I got to talk about another 49er. And I kind of did with Brandon Aiyuk, but my hot take with him is that, and I really don't think this should be a hot take, but it is, because like I said, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 35 in redraft leagues. I think he's going around that time even in dynasty leagues, despite being 24 years old. And I don't get it. But I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to easily finish inside the top 20 wide receivers this year. Yes, I'm saying that Trey Lance will be able to support 2 top 20 wide receivers. And if we're talking about Kittle, he'll be able to support a top 5 tight end as well. If you think that's a bold take, just look at Teddy Bridgewater in 2020, right? It was fucking Teddy Bridgewater, but he supported 3 top 25 wide receivers and a top 10 running back. So it can definitely be done, even by Trey Lance, even by Teddy Bridgewater. But with Aiyuk, a lot of the hate that he gets comes from the first half of last season, right? Through 7 weeks, he was like the wide receiver 76 or something ridiculous like that. But if you look specifically between, I think it's like week 11 and 18, or even if you go back to week 9, he was a top 16 wide receiver. Actually, I have that stat directly in front of me somewhere. I need to track it down just so I can give you an exact number. So let's see here. Between week 11 and 18, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, between week 11 and 18, he had 110 points, good enough for the wide receiver 16 overall. In the last half of the season, he scored more points than Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore. I won't count Chris Godwin because he got hurt, but Michael Pittman, everybody's favorite breakout candidate this year. Like Brandon Aiyuk had a really, really awesome last half of the season. And fun fact is Trey Lance, in the 2 games that he started, Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel had the exact same target share between those 2 games. So this is going to be a spread offense. And while Deebo definitely does have more upside than Brandon Aiyuk, don't discount him because he easily could. I don't want to say he's going to be this year's Deebo, but he could be this year's, big breakout wide receiver. He's going outside of the top 35 receivers right now, and he is got a very good chance of finishing in the top 20. So that's my bold take. Brandon Aiyuk, top 20 finish in 2022. And I really don't think it should be a bold take, but according to the masses, it is.
So as I'm looking at Fantasy Pros rankings for this year, there's no one inside the top 20 that I would take Brandon Aiyuk over personally, but I'm not all that far off because I would very comfortably take him in the top 25. I think you're right in a lot. I think you're close. Right? I think it's a perfectly hot take, right? Because I mean, it's supposed to be a little bit over the top. So I'm with you on it. I think it's one that has a 20% chance of happening. But yeah, I mean, we would have to see some serious fall off from some really good receivers and a pretty big concentration to Brandon Aiyuk in that situation. I mean, I'm not taking him over Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson. I think those are the ones that I'm just a firm no on. Then after that, I mean, Gabe Davis, give me Aiyuk, Marquise Brown, probably a coin flip for me. Jerry Jeudy as well, Darnell Mooney, those guys. I think I view him in that range more so than the range that he's being drafted in.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, he should not be going down at the top 35. I mean, he had a 9-week span, right, where he finished out as the wide receiver 16 through those 9 weeks. And I mean, it was a tale of 2 seasons, right? If he had played even half as well as he did in the last half of the season, in the first half of the season, he would be at least drafted in the top 25 this year in redraft. I'm entirely convinced, probably even higher, because he would have finished, significantly higher than he actually did last year. But even last year, starting off really terribly, he did finish as the wide receiver 35. So knowing that it was a tale of 2 seasons for him, you getting him at the wide receiver 35 in redraft leagues this year, that's his floor. And we know that. So I'm excited to have him going into 2022. If I can snag him up as my wide receiver 3 or even my wide receiver 4, I think that's a tremendous amount of upside there. But I know you got another hot take for us here today, right? So go ahead. And is this your last one?
Yeah, this is my last one. I think it's a really good one too. I think that Tony Pollard is going to finish easily as an RB2 this year. I think if you're someone who punts the position and picks up Tony Pollard, I think you're going to be really safe. If you're a person who thinks that A.J. Dillon's going to be a serviceable guy this year, then I think you should wait to see what Tony Pollard's going to freaking do. I mean, he apparently has been working in the slot in Dallas's offense. We know how many vacated targets there are there. I mean, he did that in college, so I mean, I think he's going to fit right into the role. Dak has already praised him on that. We even saw last year most games, other than a few outliers, it was 3 to 5 targets in most of those games. He's going to be a huge beneficiary of those missing targets. I don't think there's a chance that it's going to be Jalen Tolbert. I really do think it's going to be Tony Pollard. I think there's going to be plenty of room for him and Zeke. I think Zeke's going to see some regression. I mean, when you look, I think that the Cowboys are just going to lean more on Tony Pollard this year than Zeke. I really don't think that Zeke's going to be coming back to this team next year. When you look at what Tony Pollard has done the last 3 years, you look at his yards per carry on a similar amount of attempts, about 12, 13 attempts as Zeke, it's probably like 3 or 4 less than he saw per game. I don't have that stat in front of me. I'm kind of probably just guessing just from what I've seen in the games. But, 5.3, 4.3, and 5.5 in the last 3 years versus Zeke's 4.5, 4.0, and 4.2. I think top 20 is his floor. I think he's got a much higher ceiling than that. This guy's going to be a premier handcuff to have in the league.
I mean, it's going to take a Zeke injury. In my opinion, it's going to take a Zeke injury for Tony Pollard to be a top 20 guy. But I think this is a perfectly good hot take. I don't think it's scorching. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think there are worlds where this definitely could happen. I mean, one of the big things that jump off with Tony Pollard is that he doesn't find the end zone, right? But it's not necessarily his fault. He's seen 176 total opportunities last year between attempts and targets, only found the end zone twice. The year before that, 141, found the end zone 5 times. Year before that, even less, only 106 total opportunities, found the end zone 3 times. So it's pretty fair to assume that I think he will have more than 130 attempts this year, which means his workload goes up. I think he will have more than 46 targets this year because of the vacated targets, which means that workload goes up. And he's going to find himself probably in like that 200 to 225 total opportunities range. And this is assuming there's no Ezekiel Elliott injury, right? Like if Zeke gets hurt, all bets are off, and Tony Pollard is going to be an every week top 15 guy. I don't think there's any question about that. But I think it's safe to assume he sees 200 to 225 total opportunities, even with Zeke healthy. I think he'll definitely see more than 2 touchdowns. I think he'll have at least 5 or 6 between rushing and receiving. And last year, he finished as the RB28, but if you added in an extra 4 or 5 touchdowns in there, he's suddenly firmly, right around that 20 spot. So I think saying that he could be a top 20 running back this year, I don't think it's super off base.
Yeah, and 4 or 5 touchdowns is only the same as 15 catches and 150 rushing yards, right? So I mean, I think it's well within the range of outcomes. I really do think it's his floor, and I think he could surprise a lot of people this year and going forward. I mean, the guy really has been jumping off the screen since he got into the league. For Cowboys fans everywhere, everybody loves this guy who's been watching the games week in and week out. So yeah, I'm taking him all day over a guy like AJ Dillon, 100%. If I'm punting the RB2 position, Tony Pollard's like the guy I want behind like Josh Jacobs at cost, really. I do think he's going to finish top 20. I can't pull up the rankings for whatever reason. They're not loading. But yeah, I mean, I think he's going to finish above guys like Melvin Gordon, AJ Dillon, James Robinson, Devin Singletary, Darrell Williams. Well, obviously Darrell Williams. I'm just looking at stats from last year, even maybe a David Montgomery. I think he could finish over a David Montgomery. So yeah, I'm taking him this year all the time.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I think David Montgomery gets way too much hate. I'll be the first one to admit that David Montgomery's not the best, but there's no one stealing any targets or attempts or anything from him, right? Especially in Chicago with how just awful their offense is going to be this year. But that's a totally different story. But yeah, if we added even 4 touchdowns to Tony Pollard's stats last year without adding any attempts, without adding any targets, and you could say, oh, well, that's a big hypothetical. Well, the year before that, he had 5 on like 45 less targets or 45 less opportunities. Last year, he only had 2. So if we add 4 to that, he would have finished with 188 points, which would have been good to be the RB23, which is, just sniffing that top 20 range, like you mentioned. And I think his opportunity will go up this year. So I like that call. I like that call. Is it a guarantee? Definitely not. But could it happen? It's very possible.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of said enough about it. I kind of rambled on about that one and probably repeated myself a couple times. But yeah, so now onto your final take, last but not least, right?
Yeah, so my final one, this should not be a hot take. This really should not be a hot take, right? So Travis Kelce is going as the tight end one in redrafts right now. And in dynasty leagues, Kyle Pitts is going as the tight end one. But in my opinion, Mark Andrews should be going as the tight end one in both leagues. That's not the hot take. The hot take is that he's going to repeat as the TE1 this year, and he's going to outscore the tight end two, whether it be Kelsey or Pitts or Kittle or whoever else. He's going to outscore the TE2 by at least 30 points this year. Mark Andrews is just going to be an absolute beast this year. The Baltimore Ravens have nothing going on for them, right? J.K. Dobbins is still fighting injury. They just brought in Kenyon Drake, right? 7 days before the NFL season starts because they're that desperate in their running back room. So that kind of tells you the state that side of their offense is in. Then you look at the receivers. Rashad Bateman. That's it. That's it. What else you got? You got James Proche, Devin Duvernay, Tylan Wallace, Demarcus Robinson. These are a bunch of nobodies, right? It's going to be the Mark Andrews show early. It's going to be the Mark Andrews show often. He could set records this year with how badly Baltimore is going to need to lean on him. Like, I would not be the least bit surprised to see him put up like an all-time top 5 season from a tight end this year, because they're going to need him to do that if Baltimore is going to stay competitive in their games. And we know that he's up for the challenge, right? We saw it last year. He's an absolute gold mine for fantasy points. And Lamar Jackson literally has a quote where he goes, or no, somebody tweeted at Lamar Jackson saying, just throw it up. Fuck it. Mark Andrews is down there somewhere. And Lamar Jackson reacted to it. And he's like, you're kind of right though. Right? Like, that's how Lamar Jackson views Mark Andrews. That's how John Harbaugh and that coaching staff view Mark Andrews. And that's how I view Mark Andrews. And I think everyone else should view Mark Andrews like that as well. He's going to have a tremendous season, and he is going to absolutely dominate as the TE1 overall.
Yeah, he's a complete stud. And both Kansas City and Baltimore have lost a lot in terms of receiver production, right? With Marquise Brown and Tyreek. Obviously, I think the Chiefs have lost more, right? But yeah, Mark Andrews is going to be the focal point of this offense week in and week out. It really shouldn't be a hot take. I mean, he finished like almost 40 points, just a point off, like 38 or 39 points over Travis Kelce last year. And they're in similar situations, right? I really do think that Mark Andrews is going to blow the league away this year and be the best positional advantage that you can get at the 1-2 swing. Really, I'm fine. I mean, we've ranted and raved about Mark Andrews all off season, right? We are definitely on that train and there to stay, I think, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting season to have Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm reaching on him in any redraft draft that I have. I'm reaching on him. If I'm doing a dynasty startup, I'm reaching on him. If I have a team that's contending this year and I'm a tight end away, I will send out whatever I need to acquire Mark Andrews, because I mean, Tyler, you put it best, and I've brought this up a couple of times over the last several videos, but you quoted this, and I can't stop quoting you. You said that if you could take Travis Kelce and turn the clock back 6 years and have him just like that for 6 years, how many players would you take over him in any format? And the answer is not many, right? Like, there are very few players that I would even consider taking over sustained production from the tight end position, such as that. And that's what we're getting in Mark Andrews. So whether you're just looking at 2022 or you're looking at 2022 and beyond, Mark Andrews is going to be the premier tight end option. And it's nothing against Kyle Pitts from a dynasty perspective. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be awesome, but Mark Andrews has already proved it to us, and we've seen it, and we're still waiting on that for Kyle Pitts. So until that happens, Mark Andrews is going to be my TE1 in dynasty, my TE1 in redraft, and he's going to outscore the overall TE2 by at least 30 points in 2022.
Yeah, I think Mark Andrews could literally he could possibly outscore Jonathan freaking Taylor this year. Like in there is a universe where he outscores Jonathan Taylor this year. Jonathan Taylor put up 330 points last year. Mark Andrews put up 300 rather. I think that there's a chance that Mark Andrews could see like a Devontae Adams like concentration of target share out of this offense this year. If Lamar Jackson throws for 350 plus attempts, 400 plus attempts, I think, which probably is pretty reasonable. I'm not looking at his stats right now, but that's definitely reasonable. Mark Andrews could definitely get close to half of them, if not more than half. So
Well,
he's going to be the man here.
Well, that's the thing, and I love that you bring that up. So Jonathan Taylor, right? He goes number 1 overall in most places. Austin Eckler, he goes, if it's redraft, top 5. If it's dynasty, he's still going like top 15, right? Those are the only 2 running backs that outscored Mark Andrews in fantasy points in 2021. And you can get Mark Andrews about 20 picks after both of those guys, or at least 20 picks after Jonathan Taylor. And you get to slot him into a position that typically sees like 160 total points from an average person. Honestly, not even that much. The TE8 last year. Okay, yeah. So 7 through 12 all had 159 to 171 points. Like that's the average tight end, where like you're putting the overall RB3 essentially into that spot. That's unfair. Mark Andrews is a supreme advantage. And that's going to wrap it up for our hot take video here today. Because if I don't stop now, I'm not going to stop talking about Mark Andrews because he is just fucking awesome. But you know what else is fucking awesome? Subscribing to our channel. We would really appreciate it if you did that. I see Tyler laughing on the side because that was a fantastic segue. And yeah, hit that subscribe button if you like to watch us, hear more from us. Hit that like button if this video tickled your fancy. Feel free to comment, right? If you disagree with these bold takes or you want to scream it from the heavens how much you agree with it, put it in a comment. We'd love to hear from you. We would absolutely love it if a handful of you reached out to us and told us how wrong we were for these hot takes so that we can revisit this in about 4 months and say, no, we were right. We were right.
And I'm just saying, I mean, if we go 2 for 5, like if we shoot 40% on hot takes, that's pretty freaking good. Most people shoot like 40%, 60% on their locks, on their season locks. So I think we're gonna look like pretty smart guys a year from now when we revisit this.
So let me ask you this before we do our sign off here. You gave 5 hot takes, I gave 6. If you had to pick one of your hot takes to die on a hill for, only one of them, which one is the most likely that's going to happen?
Barring, can we just pretend that injuries aren't a thing?
We can pretend like injuries are not a thing.
If we can pretend that injuries aren't a thing, I'm going A-Rob top 12. That's the one that I would play Russian roulette with my life if I had to.
You know what? If I had to pick from your list, that's the exact one I would pick too. I love that call. I really hope it happens. I really do because I'm a big Allen Robinson fan. So I'm hoping that he can bounce back. If I was going to do mine, it's probably a tie between the Mark Andrews and the Josh Jacobs take, right? Like, I'm not going to get back into Mark Andrews, but Josh Jacobs, like, dude, he's just so underappreciated. He's been top 11 the last 2 years, and his situation's getting better. Like, stop fading the guy. He's going to be a top 10 guy this year. Very worst, he finishes top 15, but you took him as like the 24th, 25th running back overall. So, like, you're still way ahead. That's a significant return on investment. So, I know I'm copping out by picking 2 here, but I would die on a hill for Jacobs or Andrews this year.
No, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, right? I think Josh Jacobs is the one that I really wouldn't blink at. I think there is a chance that Travis Kelce catches up a little bit just because he's probably going to get a big concentration this year, right? But yeah, I think Josh Jacobs is the one that is pretty easy.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. This is definitely a video that we are going to revisit in the future. Obviously not until the 2022 season is over, but this is going to be something really fun to look at in January. And, I hope we're right on at least most of these, but I know there's going to be 1 or 2 between the 2 of us where we're going to look back at this and be like, oh, dude, we said that? Like, what are we doing?
We'll edit it out or something. I think there's probably a way YouTube lets you do that.
Exactly. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Didn't mention it yet, but join that Discord. If you like talking fantasy football, if you want some personalized advice, or if you have a team that you want to submit to us for one of our subscriber submission videos, you can do that directly in the Discord. But For myself, for Tyler, and for that Dynasty show, we will see you next time.